yet the owners had been compensated fully, to establish the total amount of proceeds from the sale or rent of the properties, to establish the number of court cases with the board, how long they have been in courts of law, and ascertain those concluded and in whose favor, to establish any possible fraudulent activities committed during the repossession of properties, to propose measures to safeguard the assets against any fraudulent disposal, and to investigate any other matters incidental to the administration of the park. Our ministers, the committee has interacted with a lot of people on this matter. We have found that some of the issues emanates from custodian board administration. In our interface, we have found that some of the prime properties, they have been taken away in the eyes of those who would have protected them. For instance, if I can recall, there is a minute where our current chairperson raised upon plot 3 that he knew that they compensated the plot 3 Kampala Road. And he was once the executive secretary of the board. He has been member of the board for several times. But the property is being used by Dr. Mamtaz. And he knew that that property was compensated. So these are some of the laxity we are saying now. The government is losing, but the fact that we know that this property was taken fraudulently. So these are some of the properties who have gone far. When you look at the Ginger, almost the whole of Ginger, they are government properties. Go to Mbale, we went to Mbale. Most of the prime properties in Mbale, they are government properties. Go to Masaka, most of the government properties, they are being taken away. Some they were compensated, but in the eyes of those who are supposed to protect them. When you go to Mbale, to Mbarara, it is the same. Go to Kabale, it is the same. Go to Guru, go to Busia, go to Soroti. And in our investigation, we also proved what the Attorney General and the terms of reference which was given to us, that some people, they did take the properties in a fraudulent way. For instance, we had a trip to Canada, we had a trip to UK, but there was some interesting stories we found in there. For instance, under Plot 32, if I can give an example, Wherry Road, the person who repossessed the property came with letters of administration supported by a letter which was saying that this man died in St. George's Stone Hospital in London on a date which they included. But when we were in London, we interfaced with the man. He was alive and was telling my property was stolen. There are some other properties like a 7274 William Street. When you look at the chronology of how that property was taken, the person did apply, because the divestiture committee rejected the application. He went ahead to try to apply in another way. They detected that. But when you find how the person took the property, and even the government made the government to compensate the time when those soldiers were in there. So it took government money, it took the property, but when we were in Vancouver, we found the owners of that property. And they gave us documents, and they said, we have never directed anybody to take the property. Now the question is, how did that person get the powers of attorney to acquire the property, which would be the government? There are a lot of issues, even including our chancellor, our chancellor in Vancouver, Lalani. He was also complaining about this farm Busunju, that Busunju Dairy Farm, which is currently owned by Mulwana. He's our ambassador. He was not given justice, and his property was taken in the eyes of those who were supposed to guard those properties. We interface, we have videos, we have everything when the people they are testifying how those properties of theirs were taken in a way which they couldn't understand. So these are the issues which we have found. Two, even the way how custodian board is operating, you don't know who is who. Then when it comes to issues of money, then you get to understand, you fail to understand who really manages the finances of custodian board. So these are some of the issues which we are thinking that as a board, as those who are charged to take care of this entity, have we done what is good for our country? It's not that we have a bad to any of you, no. But it's because whatever we're trying to do is in the interest of our country. So whatever is happening, we should take it in a good spirit to help our country. Members, we are going to, I understand that the letter which was submitted to the chairperson, I would read some of the contents here, that the committee further wishes to ascertain from you the following: the total amount of proceeds from the sale or rent of the properties, total number of cases and other with the board, for how long they have been in courts of law, those which we have won and in our favor, and those which we have lost in favor of those who took us to court. The number of concluded cases and how they concluded, failure to account for 15 billion shilling of the board. And this emanates from the situation. For instance, you go to Jinja and you find one property has 30 allocations, temporary allocations, for the last 30 years. What does that cause for? That one, the person with allocation can't sell. Now these are city status, they have given them city status. They can't sell, they can't develop those properties because of the conditions given. You find the whole city is, you go and you see what is happening in there. Go to Mbare. Why does someone has to have an allocation for 30 years? Where does that money go? So these are the things we are asking. Because when we're interacting with the custodian board executives, they told us we don't have a car. You ask them, we can't move to monitor those properties because we don't have a car. But when we moved around, just in a few districts where we moved, we found that they have allocations, which is more than 200 allocations. And those people pay monthly. Where does that money go? These are the issues we need to ascertain. In the same event, you find that I think that's where we're going to start up. When in the meeting, these are minutes of the meeting, which was held it was the 5th meeting since 1997, held on Thursday, 8th April 2010 at 10 a.m. in the Ministry of Finance, 7th floor, boardroom, Kampala. I want to quote Honorable Minister, by then, who was the Minister of State for Internal Affairs, who currently is the Minister, is the chairperson of the board. If I can verbatimly read, historical briefing by Honorable Matia Kasaija, former Executive Director. Honorable Kasaija briefed the board that during his term of office as executive director, they were collecting rents, 10% from the sales, would run administrative expenses. He cautioned the members to establish whether it was feasible to have the same arrangement. They had accounts, namely the divestiture revolving fund account, and there was a procedure to follow in withdrawing the money. What happened to those accounts? He was asking. How about the special fund and the common pool fund account as required by law? It was confirmed that the two accounts no longer exist, though they are indicated in the Act. What is disturbing, when the undersecretary in that meeting, he presented that, informed the board members that when she took over office, she was handed over two accounts, namely collection account and operation account. The divestiture revolving account in the Bank of Uganda is controlled by Accountant General. The accounts were closed in 2008. However, that's where we're going to start, Honorable Minister. When they wrote a letter to open up a new account, it was indicated that those accounts are still existing. It was indicated that those accounts which they purported to have closed, there's a letter which was written on 6 July 10th in a response to a letter which was written on 14th May by the then Executive Secretary, Bernard S. Tumweshije, to open up a new account. And it was responded on 6 July 2010, if I can read verbatimly, that opening of the accounts for departed Asians Property Custodian Board. I refer to your letters, AG Oath 838101 of 17th June 2010. It's another letter. Requesting Bank of Uganda to open a collection account and an operational account for the captioned program. This is to inform you that these accounts already exist in our books as detailed below. Departed Asians Property Custodian Board operational account number 202-2092721.1, then Departed Asians Property Custodian Board collection account. Now, if I may ask the Minister, I want two questions. What are the procedures you were talking of that which were followed before withdrawing the money from the divestiture revolving fund account?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. When I was in charge in the 90s, I served there, I think, for 3 years. One account, because the time I left, there was no divestiture. There was no divestiture yet. There was no disposing of selling. We are running the affairs as like national housing at that time. But when I left, the question of sale came up. But I had gone by the time that one was institution. We had two accounts, what we are calling the collection account, which the permanent secretary, Minister of Finance, was controlling the collection account. All the rent would go to that account. Then we had what we used to call operation account. That one was controlled by me together with the permanent secretary. Rent would be put into that account, the collection account, And every month, I would prepare a budget of what I intend to spend the following month. At times quarterly. At times could be quarterly, at times could be monthly, but mainly it was monthly. Then I would walk into the office of the permanent secretary. At that time, I think it was Cosase, Mzee Cosase. Then he would sign a check to withdraw the money from the collection account into the operations account. Then I would spend now with the accounting officer. I had an accounting officer within the organization. So him and myself would now issue a check to withdraw money or to pay check, whatever the case may be. Those were the two accounts. After, if the money got exhausted for whatever reason, then we'd still go back to the accountant, to the permanent secretary, who would again, if we convince him that actually we need more funds, then he would do so. But otherwise, the system was to prepare a budget, a monthly budget. You go to the permanent secretary, if you convince him with your budget, then he authorizes you and gives you a check to transfer from the deposit account into the operations account.
So there was no, you could just sit as executive secretary and visualize that we need this and this, could not sit as a board to just sit and you go for the permanent and permanent secretary and the issues.
No. You had to, first of all, the board was not involved so much in really in the day-to-day. As you know, board is not there every day. I would invite the board if I had issues to handle. And for them, they were never involved, except they would approve my yearly budget. That's them they would approve. I would prepare, but the monthly budget for which you draw money to run the institution, pay wages, travel, service cars, and so forth, that one we did together with the permanent secretary then.
What was the purpose of the collection account? What was the intent of it?
Oh, it was because at that time rent was coming in quite a lot of money. Rent. You know, all these towns, as you can know, the world customary properties. So there was a lot of money coming as rent. So it would go to that collection account. If, for example, if we rented your property, you don't pay custodian board. You pay straight into the collection account. Then you come with your paying slip, and then we give you a receipt. That's how the system worked.
In a situation, have you been being the chairman of the board? Have you been following the day-to-day running of the activities in custodian board to ascertain whether you have helped, you have just told the committee is what has been as practiced in the custodian. Let's say now.
What is the system now?
Yes.
First of all, when I came in this time, the whole thing had been dismantled. The whole thing was virtually dismantled. We used to have our premises down on Nasa Road. What is this one here? Nasa Road. I found they had transferred the activities of custodian board to the Ministry of Finance and left it a very small group of people. That friend of ours, the soldier, plus one or two, including that lady there. That lady was with me, even in the interviews. There were about 3 people only. The ED that time was now our ambassador in Cairo, Sam Malay. That's all. So when I came in, when I was made the minister, the foreign minister, then I said no. I called the board because I found a process that custodian board must be wound out. So we prepared a cabinet paper to ask permission from cabinet to wind up the custodian board. But there were still so many things that were pending. The actual cabinet refused the proposal. First of all, there was lack of coordination. This is when my predecessor, the one who started this, Mchala Maria Chiwanuka, is the one who started the question of winding up the custodian board. But there were so many things that were still hanging around. So when I came, I go to the board, he's here, one of my board members. We said, now, we must move systematically. Even now, the agenda for winding up is up front. We want to wind up with the activities of Kasonge board so that we live with the rest of the history. Then we found too many things that needed to be put together. Then I had to get this man, through the approval of the board, to help me to tidy up things, so that when we say we have closed, there is a way. What happens to the property that have not been sold? What happens where money has not been collected? What happens for the cases that have been already put gone to court? So all that would be stimulated. Then I would go to cabinet to seek permission, and then we appoint what we call him? Appoint the liquidator.
Now, in your submission, you talked about two accounts: the special fund and common pool fund accounts. What was those accounts?
I'm being quoted in the minutes.
Yes.
I think either the minutes, of course, I don't know, I cannot, but me, what I collect very well, there were two accounts when I was in charge in the 90s. The collection account and the collection and the operation account.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chair of the custodian board, the chair was asking a question that with the arrangement of having the accounts, where they correct rent and pay on the account, when this new arrangement
Came in.
what happened with the collections? They still collect the money and put it on the account, or the different arrangement as far as collection of rent is concerned? That was the question of the chairman.
Oh, maybe what I would do, let me ask you the executive secretary to answer.
Thank you, Chair. Through my chairperson, I beg to submit that currently we have two accounts. We have the collection account and the operation account. On the operation account, that's where rentals are deposited. Actually, we still don't handle cash. Our tenants pay direct to the bank. Then the collection account is meant for when we have disposed of any property. That account is credited. And if there is any compensation of whatever kind as approved by the board, that's the account to task. So we currently have two accounts.
Mr. Chairman, from this statement, the arrangement was the money would go to the collection account. Then after, you make a budget through the PS, they request the money come on the operation account. Now, from last statement, you are saying now that the rent now goes to the operation account.
Yes.
The goes to the collection account.
Yes.
Who changed that arrangement and why?
Actually, Honorable Chair, through my chair, that's what I found in the offing, and we handle a budget approved by the board. And that budget of the day-to-day management of the board affairs, the budget is passed by the board.
Does the Ministry of Finance has some amount, apart from what you collect from the mint and from the sales, which they annually advance to the entity?
Honorable Chair, through my chair, we don't get any money from any source. We only depend on the corrections from the rentals.
If I may ask the chairperson of the board, was there a period where the Minister of Finance could advance that money to some amount to the board?
To the management of the
Is
board.
it subversion? You know, I'm not an accountant. Subversion board, that one of the sub-candidates knows about that.
No, I think I think there is. I think he did not state it well. Rent the system now, which I found later on when I came back, is put on the operation account instead of the collection account, as we used to do. Sales, if we, I don't know how many properties have we sold. You can remind me. I don't know how many properties I have sold. 1 or 2, I don't know. Because it's in Jinja, I think there's a property that we sold. Correct?
Yes, yes,
There's a property somebody completed because he had been paid part, and then he said he can do the rest. I mean, he could pay the balance.
Did he pay the balance?
That's what I want him to confirm.
We sold 17.
How many?
We sold 17.
17.
Yes.
17 properties. So the question which we need to answer to this committee is, where did we deposit that money? And how much? I have not received a report from you. So, how much?
Those are 17 properties?
Yes.
17 or 18, I can see your list here.
17.
So the question we are raising, Mr. Vizu, is the committee would like interested to know, and I want to know, is where did we deposit that money?
Honorable Chair, through the chairperson,
In which period did you?
this is of recent, where this was under minute 14. No, the 12th meeting held on 14th December 2017. And the property, 18 properties were disposed of.
18, 17?
18 properties were set for disposal.
But before we proceed, if I may ask the chairperson of the board, let's assume we want to sell this property the way you sold the properties. What are the procedures?
Their first of all, disposal can be done in 3 ways. One is the government to retain. The law allows us. You can retain a property and give it either to whatever institution that you would want to give it to. 2 is sale. Sale is normally done either through what do you call it?
Competitive bidding.
Competitive bidding, or you said it. What is the word we use?
Private treaty.
Private treaty. The private treaty. And the board, the ministers. You know, my board is composed of ministers, Mr. Chairman. They can say, this property, this person who, for example, is been occupying the property, he has been looking after it properly, and the whole thing is documented. We say we give it as a private treaty, without subjecting that person to competition.
So on the said properties, the 18, what method did you use?
Can I finish it so that
Please.
I give? The third is that I can donate. The law also allows me. I can donate. I can donate to an institution, education, church, or not particularly those non-earning entities, either private or public. So they can dispose in 3 ways according to the law. Now, as to how we sold these, I think they were all by private treaty. But the criteria to determine whether we should sell it by private treaty is you look at the performance of the tenant. If the tenant has been doing very well, paying his rent in due, is not in arrears, and he thinks that he should buy that property, then the board has a right to sell to that person.
So,
without subjecting to tender.
So, Honorable Chairperson, that means that if I come, you just sit and think that now this property is like this, I think give me 10 million. Is that the...
No.
Yes.
No, Mr. Chairman. The property must be valued. Yeah, we have a board of valuers.
You have a board of valuers.
It must be valued. And that would be the minimum, even when, for example, even if it was by public tender, still I must have the minimum value under which I cannot sell that property.
Now, by the time you sold these properties, the 18 properties, did you have a board of valuers on December 2017?
Did we?
By that time, Honorable Chair, through my chairperson, the board was using the chief government value.
What does the law say?
The law says you can use either the government chief valuer or you can hire a board of valuers. You can boost 2 minutes. Two ways.
What does the law say about the board in as far as disposing of the property is concerned? Can you give us?
Honorable Chairman, Section 13 of the Properties Act states as follows: the implementation of this act, the minister shall, in matters of valuation, be guided by the Code of Value established under Section 2 of the Property and Businesses Acquisition Decree.
Honorable Minister,
Chairman, procedure takes precedence. Start by introducing myself. My name is Mr. Reko. I represent the Central and the lead counsel of this committee. Mr. Chairman, the procedure point I'd like to raise is that we have certain queries that we are meant to follow procedurally, so that we don't ask from X, Y, and Z. We go from A to B. My view is that procedurally, I have to propose, Mr. Chairman. You have put a question to the chairperson of the board as regards the following. One, he stated clearly the issue of winding down. Then he told us how far they had gone. Secondly, the disposal of the properties. The first question was, where was these funds deposited? Now, the question of who was used for the sale of this can be resolved to ask the procedure during the time of writing our report.
I appreciate your concern.
Mr. Chairman, I'm of the humble view that in the interest of time, we move straight to the issue of accountability.
I thank you.
Accountability committee, so that they tell us on which account this money that was realized was deposited.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Coordinating Council. However, the reason as to why I'm asking that question is to know it was not the issue of you someone sitting there and sells the property the way how we wanted. Because in the Auditor General's report, there was an issue of undervaluing political influence, which they raised as the way how those properties were disposed of. In fact, there is even a letter before me which was written by the member of the Investiture Committee. It was an internal memo on 20th November 2014, where he was wondering that there's some money which was deposited on the account by Friday 14th November 2014, which amounted to 2 billion, indicating deposit of monies on account. A few days later, on Wednesday, 19th November 2014, an account they also deposited 2.1 billion, still indicating yet more deposits on the account. The same day, November 2019, the author of this memo sought explanation for the strange deposits from the acting executive secretary there. He was wondering that the process of selling those properties were not followed. So, if they are saying that the law says we must have an evaluation board, But in this, we are looking at in this aspect of 18, the board was not there. And if the lead council, you have been following, we are asking them, why don't you dispose of these properties? The question was, we don't have an evaluation committee. It was recently that we wrote to you, Honorable Chairperson, to put up an evaluation committee. What was they using then? Because the law does not allow that, as you have said.
Mr. Chairman, I think as a committee, we have guided procedures, and the legal counsel has just provided us with the law. And we have heard from the custodian board the procedure that they use. But on this particular issue, I would be of the opinion that we leave it at that, since they have given us their side. The rest is for us as a committee to make our recommendations and observations. I think.
Let's proceed.
Yes, Honorable Chair, through my chairperson, alluding to what the lead council has put across, Honorable Chair, on the issue of winding up the activities of the board.
Excuse me, starting where you put that money, the one you realized from the service. And that is why the chairperson was asked you to deal with where you put that money. As simple as that. The evidence we are trying to gather as a committee.
Honorable Chair, I may not be in position to answer where the money that was or that accrued from the disposals at that time in 2014, but the monies that accrued from the properties which were disposed of under the meeting of 12, all these monies were deposited on the collections account. And Honorable Chair, through my chair, according to the audited books of accounts from 2017 to date, it is reflected, Honorable Chair.
So you can't account number one since 2014. When you inherit an office, you don't know what happened to that.
Honorable Chair, the Honorable Member had not yet come. By the time I joined the office in 2017, I was handed over 2 accounts. And the 2 accounts reflect what was brought forward at that time in the books of accounts, Honorable Chair.
Mr. Chairman, we have minutes of that day. Minutes of the JFC meeting of the board of the directors of the Department of Finance and Property Custodian Board, held on 14th December 2017 in the Finance Board meeting. And the secretary of the minutes, Mr. Chairman, and the issue we are talking about is under minute 14, stroke DAPCB, stroke 2017, about the sale of those properties, the 18. So this shouldn't tell the committee that you cannot answer. Yet you are the secretary, meaning that the transactions took place during your time.
Honorable Chair, I have ably answered that. Effective that date and effective those transactions, Honorable Chair, we have the accountability and all the monies that accrued from that sale.
And this is what we are talking about. Of the 18 properties that we are disposed of.
Honorable Chair, that the money was deposited on the collection account.
This is what we want. What shows that the money
Where is the collection? Which bank is the collection account?
Monies are deposited in Bank of Uganda, direct. So, Honorable Chair, with leave of this Honorable Committee, we can adduce evidence of the audit accounts by the Auditor General.
Who is the principal signatory for that collection account?
The principal
The
signatory.
principal, with the principal signature on that account.
Who are the signatories?
Honorable Chair, the operations account, the signatories is Majuru, as appointed by the Accountant General, and me.
And the collection account?
The collection account express authority is always given by the board and the chairman to do any transaction on it.
So the chairman is the principal signatory, and who?
No, he's not the principal signatory, but
Who are the signatories of the collection account?
it is again Juru and the executive secretary.
Oh, same people.
The same people.
Yes.
Can you have the instrument that appointed you to be the signatories of those accounts?
Yeah.
Yes.
Actually, Honorable Chair and members, signatories to those accounts are appointed by the Accountant General. And we have that instrument.
Yeah, but it has to be forwarded. And by way of forwarding, it must have a board minute.
Why don't you inform me?
Thank you, Honorable Chairman. I think before any money, at least as of now, before any money is withdrawn from the collection account, the board actually approves. The executive secretary submits to the board the required amount. We discuss that, and we give the approval before, and a given minute before that money is actually withdrawn from the collection account. That's what I know as of now.
As of now, then, as of then, because
At least-
you've been, how long have you been a member of that board?
For about 4 years. 4 years, over 4 years.
Mr.
At
Chairman,
least, since actually I became the member of the board, that's how it should have actually, that's how it has been.
Mr. Chairman, we appreciate the submission of the board member. But the issue at hand is, because the board, you cannot know how much is spent, how much is on the collection account, and how is it withdrawn, yet the people managing it, the signatories, yes, we know that we have control over them, but we now want to know procedurally, first of all, how they got to be the signatories of these two accounts. Was it you appointed them as a board? If yes, then we have the board minutes here. Show us the board, the minute number, and then we get to know, oh, it was self-appointed.
And Mr. Chairman, from the submission of the chairman before, you are saying that you deal with the PS of finance to sign and do whatever. Now, if the very people who are signing on the election account and the one who's signing on the other account, now what is the difference in the accounts? It seems they are the same people, they deposit money here, they withdraw from here. We now, as an accountability committee, we want to see the minute of the board approving what the member of the board was saying. That whenever they want money, they should request through the board, then the board should approve their request. So we want that evidence where the board has approved some withdrawal from either account, such as an accountability committee, we know that yes, the process is being done. Otherwise, if there is no approval by the board, it means it's the same hand that the withdraws from this account and this account, and there is even no reason to have different accounts when they are the same signatories.
Maybe, Mr. Chair, yes. From the submission of Mr. Zuhia, the signatories of the collection account that he has submitted, I think as that this document has just been given to us. Collection account, that was Sam Mare, and this is Irene Appeal. I think that is Mama Joe. Yes. We need to know how the signatories changed from Mama Joe, from Sam Mare to Mr. William, such that we get to know how the account is operating.
Maybe I could partly answer that, but I would also ask the Undersecretary, because she was really, before I came in, they were the ones handling these issues. When the Executive Secretary is appointed, first of all, he becomes the chief of the institution. I can't remember very well what the law says, but you should be a signatory on the operations account. Me, I'm talking about my. Me, I'm talking about the other day. Once you've been appointed as the executive secretary, then you become a signatory on the operations account. The second signature normally would have been the one of the accounting officer, because there was a difference between the executive secretary and also the accounting officer, the one who is running the day-to-day issues. When I came back at the second time, I think the undersecretary, she's here, at that time, would be the one, I think, having the second signature on the account. That is on the operation account. On the collection account, it should be the permanent secretary. At that time, as I said, it was the permanent secretary. Together with some officer within the Ministry of Finance. I don't recollect exactly. If I have given time, I can go and read back these things. So that the authorities are separated. The authority on the deposit, the collection account are totally different from the authority or the accounting, or the signatories on the operation account.
Members, under section 7D, 2D of Associate Department Agents Act, the operational account, the mandates the executive secretary to be a signatory of that. But the question would be, how did Mama Drew, a member of the investiture committee, became a secretary, I mean a signatory to that account? In fact, to all accounts, collection account and operation account.
Subject the chair, for his explanation, is asking you.
Yes.
If he said the collection account was supposed to be the PS and somebody from the Ministry of Finance, is Mama Drew a PSC or she's from the Ministry of Finance? How does Mama Drew connect? And on the two accounts?
I can't answer that. Maybe. Maybe
I think Mr. Chairman,
she would answer.
Mr. Chairman, we have the principal accounting officer of God. How did that person arrive to sign money fund on behalf of God? Every financial year you have to present a list of those persons to the authority to account for funds.
I think let's divide over the period. First of all, my understanding of custodian board is like a custodian. It has its role and the board and its own staff. And currently now, my understanding under the Public Finance Act, because you see also rules have been changing. Now, but currently now, the board, I mean the executive secretary, is supposed to prepare, in my view, should prepare a budget. And the budget is presented and approved by the board. Now, once the board, that's how operations work. Once they have approved, then implementation of the budget becomes, who becomes accountable and operations should be the secretary. So I want us, of course, me, as I know, is that this is a separate body of the operations of the treasury. I thought that's how it was being worked. Is that the case we're going to be secretary? So that we finish that period, then we go to past. I want to answer all of them.
That's how it is being done. As executive secretary, I prepare, and my staff will prepare a budget, which budget is approved by the board, and when the board approves, we spend according to the votes in the budget. Then on the issue of Mama Juru,
how did you get the instrument to be you as the signatory and Mama Juru as your other signatory?
Let me explain that one. My understanding, under the laws of Uganda, first of all, all accounts, opening of accounts by law, are approved and authorized by the Accountant General under Public Finance Act. But we are not allowed to be one single person hold an account. I suspect, mark my language, that of course the principal secretary must be the executive secretary. So we normally allow minimum three signatories. So that in case you are sick, the operations of the body can continue. And I suspect strongly that probably that's how it has come. But I would want those who did it, because the one for the Accountant General approves, it is the secretary to the custodial board who writes to him to say, we want the following. And I would want him to answer if I am correct or wrong, because I want to be very careful so that we finish that part.
Do you have any instruments which appointed Mama Juru or any other person?
Honorable Chair, I have the instrument approving me to be the signatory to those accounts by the Accountant General. Then what I found in place at that time, because Mama Juru was a co-signatory, and every financial year when the token expires, it is supposed to be taken back to the Accountant General for renewal. So I strongly believe that the Accountant General renewed the Mama Juru to be or to continue being there.
Let me remind you, Mr. Accountability Committee, which deals with evidence. You have any instruments which renewed, they say renewed Mama Juru to be the secretary to both accounts, the operational and provisional account.
Can I ask a clarification, Mr. Chairman? My understanding is that not every year you come back to the Accountant General for approval. So if she had been approved, and I'm not talking about facts, if she had been approved before he came in, the only person now to approve at that particular point can only have been him. Because the other one was already a secretary going on.
But Mr. Chairman, Mama Juru is there.
The answer back.
Why isn't Mama Juru answering that question? Where did she get? Who appointed you?
Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. This is how I came to be a secretary to Cosase. When the e-banking system came into place, the Accountant General then told the four of us in the Divestiture Committee, that was Honorable Male, Mr. Albert Muntuyera, and Augustine Okello and me, to send him our CVs. So we sent him our CVs, and he gave us certain forms to fill with photographs in it. Then the issue was to induct us into the e-banking system. Then he himself chose me and Male. Male was there because he was in the capacity of chairman, the Vice Chair Committee, as well as acting executive secretary. So his was automatic. Now, the second signatory was needed to operate that system in the Bank of Uganda. So he chose me. The criteria that he used to choose me, I don't know. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, let me also do this. I also want to be fair to your committee members. Because what they are working with is a matter of evidence. And I think we should be fair. So what we should do, what should have already been done, if that is the case, we should, because the Accountant General must have written to Bank of Uganda, or somebody must.
Exactly, sir.
Now, so can't we get that instrument? We need to go and get that instrument, or at that time, if you can remember the date and the paper, we can get that evidence from either Bank of Uganda and forward it to you, so that matter is resolved.
But before that, Mama Gibo, as a person who was there, they just appointed her without any instrument. She might be having an instrument.
Fine, if she can, I'm saying, if she has it, she should
now
produce
you
it.
go and be the executive secretary, I mean the secretary to an account.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What I've told you is exactly what happened. When e-banking came, the method of the management of the accounts came. Then the Accountant General asked us to give him our CVs, and then gave us a certain form with photographs to fill. Exactly, sir, that was what happened. Then he goes to Bank of Uganda.
Mama Juru,
Yes.
are you the signatory to custodial board accounts?
Yes, sir.
Both.
For both.
What shows that you are appointed to be the signatory for both accounts?
Mr. Chairman, the Accountant General brought to the Assistant Director Bank of Uganda.
Were you given a copy?
I don't have a copy, but I can find it.
So how did you know that you were appointed?
Do you have an appointment in civil language?
I'm going to look for those documents and bring them.
No, Mama Gibo, you were my person who have served in that office for a long time. At least you know, because you can't wake up in the morning and somebody calls you, and that now you go and be a signatory. And you also walk straight and become a signatory without any instrument. This is a government agency.
Mr. Chairman, that letter is there. Look for it and bring it. Because he got and gave us copies.
Members, on that, the committee will look into that and make their recommendation the same.
Mr. Chairman, for fairness of the committee, she should produce a document that shows that she got authority either from the Accountant General, whatever, to be a signatory on those accounts. I think it's really that thing.
Yeah, and it's Mr.
So
Chairman.
that matter is, if the letter is not there, then you do your recommendation.
And you see, Chair, while we're asking about the signatories, there are stories coming on these accounts. So we want to know who has been responsible for these accounts. So I think, Chair, you need to make it clear, either you can give them a day or even now, prove this committee as an accountability committee, that there is an evidence how they are appointed and how they have been operating these accounts. Otherwise, would take you as the ghost into these accounts.
Members, because we had allocated 2 days for the board, the committee should direct that Mama Julu brings the instrument which appointed him as a signatory tomorrow as we resume this meeting.
But also, Mr. Chairman, still on the same account, for the executive secretary, who is the principal signatory to the 2 accounts, to tell the committee regarding the sale of the properties, that since the money is deposited to the Bank of Uganda, that we cannot have images. I don't think that is right. I think Mr. Chairman, the executive secretary, should actually come with a statement of that account, of those 2 accounts, to see the operation, its operations, how they are being operated. Because if a property A is sold, then we expect it to be reflected on the statement. Yes.
The committee do here direct, as you've heard, to bring the statement to know, so that the committee can get abreast with what is going on. Members, when the chairman of the board was submitting, he said they had two accounts. That is collectional account and operational account. But before me, I have a record. During this period, because on 27th, February 27th, I think the executive secretary was not there. I'm looking at, I'm seeing 4 accounts. There's collectional account number 0140001126901 in Stanbic Bank, IPS branch. Also, operational account number 01400269002, Stanbic Bank, IPS Bank branch. Then the special divestiture revolving account in the Bank of Uganda. Funds from this account were used for compensation former owners whose properties were sold by government or nullified. This account was controlled by Accountant General. There is fixed deposit account number 117/001/223 with the International Credit Bank. This brings to the 800 million which was deposited there as an investment account. So, if I may ask the then Undersecretary, because I presume this is a period where all other we talk of divestiture committee, we can say the defunct period of custodian board, where the Undersecretary was the leader, isn't it? If I may recall like that, am I right? Undersecretary, how did these accounts came in place?
Thank you, Chair. To my minister, the chairperson, and the PSST. There is a lot of background, but to be specific, you're right. When I was handed over the custodian board, which was 207, exact, I made, there were 4 accounts as you stated. One is IPS, which was under Stanbic Bank. Then there was one, there were 2 accounts, Stanbic Bank. Then there was the special divestiture account in the Bank of Uganda, the bank. Then there was the 4th, which was the fixed deposit account. Chairperson, at that time, there were too many anomalies. And if I'm given a chance, then I'll...
Please, you have it. That's why you are here. We want to help this.
All right. Chairperson, to me, custodian board is a classical example of state failure. And
it's a classical
example of state failure.
Of state failure.
Yes. The custodian board, as you mentioned, Chairperson, was set up with good intentions, which was to polish the image of Uganda and compensate people who had lost their property when they were expelled from Uganda. And there were too many failures that we see today. Actually, I feel sorry for executive directors because some of these failures couldn't do much. And one of them was the financial management aspect. When I took over custodian board, 2007, I managed it for about 2 years, not much. There was nothing called accounts, nothing. But when I was handed over the custodian board, my assignment was very specific from the then PSST, the late Chris Kasando. He told me, why move? That was his statement. And in place I found 3. There were 2 actually, cabinet members to close the custodian board.
Who and who?
There were two threes. One was in 201, submitted to cabinet rejected as insufficient. Another one was submitted in 202, rejected. And then there was the one in 206, rejected. For the same reason, i.e., there were no final accounts, audited books of accounts. Custodian didn't have. I think since 1999, there were no audited books of accounts. So what was my job? To ask the Auditor General to audit the custodian board. And why is that? Because in 1997, Chairperson, Honorable Minister, custodian board was wound up. 1997. It was wound up in 1997. The custodian board. And I have the minutes. These minutes.
Can we have a copy of the minutes so that the committee can look at them and appreciate?
If they could make a copy, one copy, that I could give it to you. The custodian board was wound up, and I will read it to you. And it was wound up by the board, which was chaired by the Minister of Finance,
Who was there?
Honorable Mayanja Panji, and then there was the Minister of Trade and Industry, who was Honorable Muganwa Kajuna, the Minister of Land, Housing and Urban Development, the late Francis Ayume, Honorable Masoga Sanju, who was the Minister of State, charge of general duties, the Solicitor General, Mr. Kabati, there was the member, Honorable Matia Kasaitia, and another member, Sam Mare. In attendance, there was the Under Secretary, Naume Wanyama, Wilson Mweleza, who was the Property Manager, Custodian Board, John Manjara, Finance Manager, Custodian Board, Enoch Rugbo, he was Personal Assistant to the Minister of State General Duties. Then there was Ruth Olinjo, who was the Legal Manager. And at that meeting, Chairperson, they won the Custodian Board, and I'll read the decision. In view of the diminished size of the Custodian Board, I think when Honorable Matia Kasaitia was Executive Secretary, they had a workforce of 169 members. But the recommendation was that in view of the diminished size of the Custodian Board, the Board of Directors saw no further need for the board to sit and take policy decisions regarding Custodian Board. The Board of Directors therefore mandated the Minister of Finance as board chairman to make all future policy decisions of the Custodian Board. And they said the Custodian Board would be wound up, and they requested the Minister General duties then to be in charge, and the Under Secretary.
Who was the minister then?
This was 1997. And then they asked the Under Secretary to carry on administrative issues, and that he'll be paid, I think, 500 as an allowance. So, Chairperson, honorable members, Custodian Board failed then. One, there was no management in place. There were no books of accounts. It was never audited.
That was 1997.
The Custodian Board, there were many things. The monies left in accounts were not known. Chairperson, you're talking about 15 trillion. I don't know where Custodian Board would have gotten it from, but I'm looking at three sources. One, the sale. Two, the rent from government properties. Three, rent from private property.
Sorry. When you are handed over, tell the committee what you received.
That's what I received. But I found failures. So I'm telling them.
Tell them the money.
The money, I found again.
When did you, before I think before the just went to handle that, when did you resume office to handle Custodian Board?
207.
007. Before you can proceed, if I may ask Mama Juro, when did the divestiture committee relieved of its duties?
Mr. Chairman, it was on the 30th of January 2006.
Then who was in charge between 2006 and 2007 when you took over?
There was the management team headed by Ruth Olicho. She was the legal manager, the executive secretary, and the finance and the financial manager.
When you took over
Yes.
now.
And then there was a gap.
No, when you took over from Corona. So there was
Peter,
When did you take over the charges?
Yes, I took over from Orono as undersecretary, but Orono didn't hand over to me. Orono, I joined Ministry of Finance in 2005, and where the custodian board was being managed by Ministry of Finance. But to get proper documents and everything, it took almost a year. So we were working in absentia of information. So proper documentation I got into this.
You see, members, why I'm asking that, when the other secretary was wondering where does the 15 billion came in, before the committee we have a handover report, which was signed by the chairman of the divestiture committee. The member was Mama Juro, another member which was Okero. And indeed, in this handover, they are talking of the properties which were sold, fully paid for as at 31st December 2007. And when you compute the whole amount which was paid, it was 15.378 billion Uganda shillings. But then we are asking, how did, because it is disturbing, when you see the collection account, when the chairman was saying it was supposed to be in Bank of Uganda. The current secretary is telling that the collection account is in Bank of Uganda. During this period, we are seeing a collection account was in Stanbic Bank. One, who opened that account? Was it a directive to open to change that account from Bank of Uganda to Stanbic Bank? The sales is indicating 15.378 billion. So we are looking at how was this money, the expense of this money. How did you use this money? 15.3 minus the partially paid properties. We are talking of the fully paid properties. It was 15 billion.378 and some small manner. And we think that was the period which you took over office. So if you can help us to understand, because we need to understand how was the sales. Because in that period, we don't see the compensation which took place within that period of time. Because the few who have seen are not more than 10, which you did or agree to compensate. Then you will come in to ask questions.
balances on the account. The collection account in IPS branch was, that was as at 28 Feb 2007, was 43,515,017 shillings. The signatories by then were Undersecretary and BSSC. Then there was the operational account also in Stanbic Bank, and that was also at 28 February 2007. The balance was 13,024,526. And signatories to that account were the Undersecretary and Legal Manager. And then there was a special divestiture rolling account in the Central Bank. And the signatories were the Accountant General, the SSC, and the balance, I'll get the balance later. And then there was the fixed deposit account with International Credit Bank, which showed that the money had been transferred to the Bank of Uganda, and it was 800 million. On the 2nd of May 2006, we wrote to Bank of Uganda requesting for an update on that account.
Which account of fixed deposits?
Fixed deposit. We never got it. So that's the money that I got.
But Mama Juru, you were signatory to this handover report. Why did you write the money which was not on the account?
Mr. Chairman, that report, if I can give some historical background.
Please do.
When sales began in the Castilian board by competitive bidding, we sold 78 times by competitive bidding, 78 times. Selling in batches, batch 1 up to 19, up to 78. So what we did, we kept our own records. So the monies that the client would pay, we kept records of them, and that was what we wrote there. And if you want to prove, you can do some random sampling throughout Uganda. You can get some, where you has purchased this property in Bulu, as purchased in Barara, as purchased in Bari and so on. They'll give you receipts, plus all documents, including purchase certificate that was signed by the Minister of Finance at the time. When money goes, I want you to note that when money goes into account, the University Committee now has nothing to do with it. Those were our records.
Madam Undersecretary, we presume that what you have read was the handover report dated June 30th, 2010. Isn't it? Isn't that what you have read? That was a takeover? Or you are ready? Because this is a handover report where we are ascertaining what you did include on that. But we are testing the takeover. This is the handover report by the executive or by the divestiture committee. Hello? Starting from the one that the divestiture committee gave you. Then where this came from? Because we are looking for that money. And I want to be precise to you. As this committee, we need accountability for that money. On which account? Because, Madam Kasimbas, we are talking of collection account. They are talking of collection account, which was in the Bank of Uganda. We are seeing here the collection account changing to Stanbic Bank. How did it change from Bank of Uganda to Stanbic Bank?
Chair, I don't have any idea, but I have a statement from the Central Bank for the account.
Madam Kasimbas, when the secretary, who was the then executive secretary, then executive secretary. Was saying we had a collection account in the Bank of Uganda. The current executive secretary, they have a collection account in the Bank of Uganda. The divestiture committee, then the collection account was in the Bank of Uganda. During your period, we are seeing collection account in Stanbic Bank. How did it change from Bank of Uganda to Stanbic Bank? Who authorized the change and the opening of a collection account in the Stanbic Bank from Bank of Uganda?
Chairperson, unfortunately, I don't know, but I have my handover notes from the then and the secretary, Corona people, who handed over custodian fund, and this was on the 21st of January 2005, and this is what he handed over to, according to his record, custodian fund. I don't know when that changed, but that's what I found in place.
Madam Undersecretary, if I read this is an internal memo which was addressed to Honorable Minister of Finance from Undersecretary, I think that's the account officer, handover of the departed Asian Property Custodian Board, the park, scheduled from February 2005 to June 2010. You indicated the background, how he joined the Ministry of Finance. Then person in a place, I found a skeleton staff that was supposed to head up the department. The team included the investor committee, Rico manager, who was the overall manager of custodian board, the claims manager, the secretary, driver, and the messenger. The role of Undersecretary as head of task force was made by the board in their meeting of 29th July 1997, chaired by Minister of Finance, Honorable Mayanja Kani. In his communication from the chair, Minister of State for Finance, the late Honorable Sogan Sandu informed the board, stated that when he took over the office, I just want to read on that. With the Executive Secretary, he therefore set up the task force headed by the Undersecretary of Finance and consisting of 16-member staff of the Custodian Board. The task force was doing the work of the Custodian Board pending the passing of the bill to wind up the Custodian Board. Then comes up the accounts, where it's a collection account, where it's the balance as by 28th February 27, it was 43 million, the signatories. Then the collection account by 28th February, it was 13 million. That was included in your handover report. But this was the handover report for takeover, because this was the handover report by the divestiture committee when they disposed them. We had 15 billion on the account according to the report, which was approved from the sales. So we are looking at those 15 billion. Where does that 15 billion went? Because the reason why the reason why I'm asking that, I'm seeing a lot of I'm seeing some requisitions indicate sent to, yes?
From Madam, during your period, were you a signatory to those accounts?
Yes, one of the accounts. Because there was a procedure, like the Honorable Minister said. One was with the final one. Just one question. This divestiture report was dated when? When was it? When was it done?
It was dated 20th January 2006.
was the collection account, I think. No, the operations account. That's what the undersecretary was signatory with the fee system. And in the handover report of the undersecretary then, Corona people, dated 205, he says, section 3, finances. The Department of Health and Property Custodian Board had 3 accounts. And he said collection account, and then he also, actually his was 800. Then there was operational account, which was, didn't say the amount. Then there was a special divestiture revolving account, 304. And Chairperson, for clarity, the 15 billion was on which account?
Was on collection account. Madam Secretary, Madam Under Secretary, I'm seeing a letter here. That is payment for 2006. I'm seeing a letter dated 18th January 2006. The manager Islamic Bank IPS branch confirmation of check on the bank collection account number 040011269001. Please accept and honor our check for the amount of 78.597 drawn on Departed Asians Property Custodian Board collection account number 0140011269001 to operational account number 0140011269002. Those who signed for permanent secretary was Betty Kasimbazi and principal account J. Odoi Ocheng, which shows that because for you are talking of 93 million, but here you are signing 78 million on the account in Bank of Uganda. And I've told you, when they went to open up an account, the same number, the same account, when you indicated in the meeting that the accounts were closed, and on 6th July, when they went to open up an account in the Bank of Uganda, they did write back to the Accountant General, Minister of Finance, that opening of bank account for Departed Asians Property Custodian Board, which was received by Accountant General on 7th July 2010. It was indicating that this account was in the account was there was an account in the Bank of Uganda. Now the question is, that money, where did that money go? And what were you withdrawing from Bank of Uganda account, which you didn't know?
Mr. Chairman, before we even go to the purpose of the money, this is Betty Kasimbazi. During your time, did you operate any account with the Stanbic Bank? Yes? Regarding custodian board, who opened that account?
I have no idea, but I closed it. The account
You
was
closed?
closed with the Accountant General, and I think this is the account, the same account that was transferred to the Bank of Uganda. This account was closed.
Who closed it?
The Accountant General was the only one with that account.
And you don't know how it was opened? Because, Mr. Chairman, during the handover and the takeover, the account was with Bank of Uganda, the C accounts. And at first, you didn't have any knowledge regarding the Stanbic Bank account. And this account, Stanbic Bank account, only surfaced during your time. Yes, and maybe when was it closed? We need also to know that. And what's supposed to be closed?
I was handed over this report, those accounts in place.
The Stanbic Bank account.
In your handover report, did you hand over those accountability of how you did spend that money on these accounts?
Chairperson, during my time, I requested the Auditor General audit the operations of the custodian board. He because they were not clear. Because there were no accounts, no books of accounts. And in the accountability of the audit of the Auditor General, that's what shows what monies were where. And the Auditor General's report is available for change.
You see, you know what amuses me? I have a lot of confirmation just from collectional accounts in Bank of Uganda, signed by Undersecretary, withdrawing money from that account. But the question would be, if the accounts were not there, what was he withdrawing?
They were there. I said
so that should we think that that money is part of the money we're talking about?
I did a correction of the team. Because I remember the question very well. That around, I think, when we started the day, because you see, we need to get the value, in my view. When we but I think the one who said, cross all these accounts. Of everybody who has said, when we started single treasure account, why not start we found earlier on that we have to check when the accounts and the commercial banks were closed. We may have been as a general policy, because we found government had all this money in commercial banks, including all the ministries, local governments, and all these things. But then, money is from these accounts, then the government will be forced to borrow. When had money from these accounts. That's when we started, this is around 30. That's when we made that first. The thing is, the accounts, those commercial accounts in the commercial banks were closed around 13, 15. And out. It is out as a result of that general policy. Now, that's number one. But here I wanted to ask also, because I thought it's a studio of answer here. How many of them would have been a possibility? Okay, so mine was, Roberts was sold, mine was good, but it was not back. What you seem to be saying, mine was back. Now, if it was back on that account, then I think it was German. Possible. If it was bank, then it's possible that we go on that account, and I think a do proper audit, and let who was withdrawing the money. But if it was not bank, then that could have been a different problem. And I would want to ask as your permission, how was all the money from the address, you people who were there, was all the money back as the proceeds were being done? That's question number one. And was it back on the proper accounts?
Mama Juru?
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. The money that were paid by the clients were on banks, and they were even issued receipts.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Honorable.
I remember it is on record. When we were interrogating on Road 16B or the Kampala Road, where the evidence was provided to the committee that Kano Ndahura Atok paid an overdraft of 60 million, and this money was given to David Kasimbazi, and this money is not reflected anywhere, and acknowledgement was provided. Then 30 million for Road 16, the Rubaga Road, was also done, and the acknowledgement was provided, and it was not reflected.
Yeah.
Mama Juru now. Road 16B for the Kampala Road. And there was a payment of 60 million by Kano Ndahura Atok. And the acknowledgement was given, and this money is not reflected anywhere. And then 30 million for 16 Rwanda Road. The information was provided to the committee. Maybe you also need to clarify.
Yes, I have a letter here on the same, which was issued on 22nd July 2010, addressed to Lieutenant Colonel Ndahura Atochi Bilakolataki of PO Box 30631, Kampala. Acknowledgement of 60 million being payment for plot number 16B, Board Kampala. This is acknowledged receipt of 3 DFCU bank drafts as payment in respect of plot 16B, Board Kampala. Below are the particulars of the bank draft. Bank draft number 76290, which was paid on 21st July 2010, worth 20 million. Bank draft number 716291, which was issued on 21st July 2010, amount 20 million, and bank draft number 71692, which was issued on 21st July 2010, 20 million. A general receipt will be issued in due course when the account is activated on the IFMS. Signed by Bet Kasimbazi, Under Secretary, Stroke Accounting Officer. That's what is the honorable member is referring to. That these properties, property were sold, but the money never reflected anywhere on the accounts of the park. You see, this is I wish you can understand us. Really, this is why we are asking this. Now, we are seeing that now the government sold properties. We don't see any compensation. We don't see the accountability of 15 billion. Yes, the challenge.
You receive that money, you wrote. Is that the question? Oh, if it's not question, where do you put the money? To me, that's as right as that.
Mr. Chairman, I have a suggestion here. As an accountability committee, we have an evidence here. And this letter is from Madam Betty, maybe through chair. She can have a look. But when you compare what we have on record and the explanation she's giving, Chair, it is as if she's not telling the truth. So through Chair, can I request Chair, through our rules of procedure, that as an accountability committee, to get the truth but nothing the truth from the witness, can she be subject to order so that we can do with the person who is telling us the truth, Chair?
Members, I think this committee wants the truth, and it is through the truth that we are going to help the government, because we are just starting. We have a lot of issues which we have not tackled. That's why we gave 2 days, and you will see that these emanates. That's why I saw in my introduction that it emanates from the management of custodian board. You will see, for instance, I can add it before taking the ruling. You will see their properties, which was mortgaged in a bank, in Diamond Trust Bank. Over 50 properties. But the custodian board, they failed to get those properties. But we are seeing in the documents where people could say, we withdrew this money, they take it in a custodian board, in a Diamond Trust, they remove a mortgage. Where are those properties? You use the government money from the sales account, you paid in the Diamond Trust Bank to remove a mortgage. Where is the property? So we have all this. And I think for the good of this country, not for anybody's intention, we need the truth to help both of us. More especially the PSS who does all that. So with that, I think it is prudent for Madam Undersecretary to take oath, then we proceed. Thank you. Can the Secretary Clerk take?
I want to request that you give me a chance to check with the Accountant General, because
no, we have ruled on that, then we can proceed. Thank you.
because I want to clarify, because in my letter, it is saying that this was with IFN,
No, we still have a lot of things which we need to know, which we have been asking but noting. The way how the banks of accounts changes, all these are not yet clear. So I think if you, as the members have agreed, if you can put on oath on that, then we can really take the truth. Let the clerk administer oath, then we proceed.